Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I want to talk to you guys about getting spare hammer springs for your AR-15s. This year I've had a very busy year. I've been traveling around the Northeast training people, and I've been, running up the round count on my rifles. And basically I saw that the hammer springs were breaking on me. Um, now this AR over here has about 22,000 rounds on it, and over the course of its life, I've had to replace the trigger group 3 times. In most cases, what happened with this gun is the the trigger sears, and the disconnector sears. The point at which the trigger the parts of the trigger group connect with each other, they started getting worn out, and the trigger was locking up. And I had to change the trigger group 3 times. I've talked about that in the past. The trigger group is a part that wears out pretty quickly. Now, on these guns over here, these are the Palmetto PX9s. I just bought these this year. Now, with the 9mm rifles, just because they tend to be a little cheaper to shoot, because when you're shooting 9mm, you get a box, of 50 rounds, so you got like 3.5 times the number of rounds typically going through your 9mm rifles. At this year, at some points, I had about 5,000 rounds a month going through these rifles. And what I saw is that the hammer springs were breaking. Okay, now this is a 5,000 round part. I probably got about 10,000 rounds out of this, but you can see how it broke. The way I realized that this broke is on this rifle here. While I had somebody shooting it, the trigger just locked up, or it was locking up, and then I opened it up, and then what I saw is that the leg that broke off was getting jammed in the trigger group, and that's what was jamming the gun up. The gun was still shooting. It was still able to create enough pressure to fire the gun just with the one leg. Okay, so it will, at least in this gun, it will work. Now on this one over here, I had a different experience. This was about a month earlier. I had somebody shooting this gun, and the trigger was just stuck again. And then when I opened this up, I found that the trigger pin had cracked in half. And then when I went to replace that, I also saw that the hammer leg had also broken off. Okay, so this was also running on one leg. Now I don't know if it broke as a result of me, trying to remove it, or if it was already broken and just still working, and it would have been fine if not for the trigger pin breaking. I don't know the answer to that, but the point is that on both of these PX9s, I broke the trigger springs, and I've had to replace them. Now, normally when you buy a replacement trigger group, they give you a spring, but I wanted to have a spare pack. I bought these from American AR15.com. I found them, about a week ago, just doing a Google search. This 10-pack was $15, so not too expensive. Not a bad idea to just buy this and just keep this, in a drawer somewhere. So $15 is not bad. I also bought a couple of spare buffer springs. I did notice that over the 10,000 rounds I put on this gun this year, the buffer spring was starting to get really soft. I could pull this back really easy, so that definitely, was weakening. So I changed the buffer spring on this, and I also upgraded the buffer weight. These Palmetto PX9s come with a 5-ounce buffer weight, and after speaking to a rep over at Palmetto, he told me that he uses 8 ounces on his gun, so I upgraded these to 8 ounces, and they work great. This rifle over here with the 16-inch barrel, prior to my upgrade, because I upgraded, I put both a heavier buffer spring and the 8-ounce buffer weight. This used to, if you were shooting this lefty, you could feel the gas coming out. Since I upgraded the buffer weight on this and upgraded the spring, there's a lot less gas that's coming out. So that might be something that you want to do. And these AR9s use the same trigger group as a standard mil-spec AR-15. On my regular ARs, I have not actually seen a hammer spring break yet, but I've broken trigger groups repeatedly. You know, basically the sears just wear out over time. You know, so you definitely want to have lots of spare, you know, lots of spare trigger springs, and have a couple of spare trigger groups. And this is in addition to, you know, having an extra bolt, having, you know, extra firing pins, you know, the gas rings and all the other stuff that's pretty common. Usually you don't hear people talking about breaking trigger springs, which is the reason why I wanted to do this video, to let you guys know that you should definitely get yourself, you know, get yourself a 10-pack of these hammer springs. If nothing else, in a real bad future situation, you know, this is something that you can trade. You know, if you got extra hammer springs and people need them, you know, these hammer springs are something that you can trade for things that you need. So these are cheap enough that you should definitely get them. Get yourself a couple of these buffer springs. These are also cheap. These are usually about $3 to $5 for a spring. Also something that you should have lots of extra. Oh, something else I should mention on these Palmetto PX9s. I've been using these ETS magazines this year, and mind you, I have put, I mean, between just these two guns, I've probably put about 20,000 rounds on these magazines right now. Of course, this is spread out over about 30 magazines. But what I did notice is that these ETS magazines, from that bolt going forward and rubbing against the lips, it is wearing in the lips. Does not really affect these guns from working, but I noticed that when I take these magazines and I put them into my P80s, those guns tend to jam up, because as these lips are wearing out over here, the bullets are starting to point up a little bit more. So that's something to watch out with your ETS magazines. If you start showing wear on the feed lips from your PX9s, from your 9mm rifles, it's probably not going to be an issue if you just shoot these just in a handgun and just in a Glock 17 or a Glock 19, because that slide is not going to eat the feed lips the same way that these heavy bolts, you know, are rubbing up against those feed lips. So I just wanted to share that information with you guys. If you guys have any questions, comments, feedback, you know, put in the comment section. If you're not a member, please subscribe. And again, the place where I got these springs is from what's this place called? AR-15. No, AmericanAR-15.com. I don't get paid by them or anything. I didn't even know who they were a week ago. I just found them in a simple Google search, and you know, it's cheap enough that it's worth mentioning. $15 for a 10-pack. So I'll see you guys next time.